Hello, Internet. Gino that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. And even though it is the midst of summer, it's time to get spooky. We played Signalis, a game that is about lesbian androids, and maybe they're haunted. And joining me, as always, to discuss games, Pete Busby. Hello, Pete.
Hey. Very exciting game this time around. Lots to talk about. But our fun fact for this week is going to be the second most disturbing thing I've heard today, oddly enough. Thought it was going to be top spot, but it didn't quite make it. So we all know that birds aren't real, right?
Yes.
Of course. And now we know why. So I will again read a headline. This is from the Aerospace Research Central. We finally did, yes. Here's the title. This is from researchers at the New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology. Title: Taxidermy Birds as Platform for Flapping Wing Drones, a bio-inspired mechanism for wildlife monitoring.
I remember this.
Yep.
This is awful.
Seemingly anodyne title is basically engineering perverts at the New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology are turning taxidermied birds into drones for espionage purposes mostly.
You think.
Peter, would you describe this as necromancy?
It's definitely necromancy worse. Adjacent. It's as close as we can get right now.
Yeah. Maybe if they were necromantically reviving birds, it would be less freaky than what they are actually doing, which is putting them, cutting them apart and putting a robot bit in the middle to make it look like they're flapping their wings.
So they can sneak up on people and other birds, and we won't notice.
I think the birds will notice.
They gave a robot a skin suit?
Basically, yeah.
Yes.
A feather
bird suit.
No, thank you. All right, that other voice you hear, not being sufficiently disgusted, is M. Palladino. Hello, M.
Oh, don't take my jovial attitude as not disgusted. It's nightmarish. Hello. Thank you for having me. This was my pick because for the past year or so, maybe longer, people have been like, I think you're going to like this game. And I like this game.
I was going to say, I showed them.
I hated it. Awful. No, I spent a lot of time playing this game.
And the third voice you may have heard earlier is our special guest, Braden, ArbitraryWater Redacted.
Oh, hey guys, I'm gonna try this chocolate bar.
Make sure to hit it against your head.
Oh, fuck me, it's milk chocolate. No, hi, hello. I was one of the people who told M this would be a game for her.
Yes.
And I feel validated because it's a game that sits right in the middle of our little Venn diagrams.
Yes.
This does cover a lot of us, actually.
Yeah. Yep. This is definitely a deep listens game.
Yep. This is scientifically engineered for us to enjoy this game. And we did. But before we discuss Signalis, our normal housekeeping, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. If you were to do so, you'd get access to our Discord, which might lead you to being on the Discord report.
The Discord report. This week on the Discord, did you know that Twitter is rebranding? Because we sure do.
I sure did, because I noticed as soon as our podcast statistics from Twitter stopped working properly because the API broke.
Yeah.
Sounds like a savvy business move to me.
Mm-hmm. Twitter has officially rebranded to X, which is asinine, and we were dunking on that in the Discord. If you recall our Kingdom Hearts discussion, the X is significant in that game. And so, happy Kingdom Hearts fandom. Everyone else is like, this is dumb. And
Kingdom Hearts fandom is like, this is dumb, but in a way I really, really engage with. And everyone else is just like, this is
exactly. Yep. Yeah. Other things in the Discord, Gino wanted to play Mass Effect bad. I told him that was stupid.
Yeah, I contemplated what would happen if I played Mass Effect by making all the bad choices, because I'm at the end of Mass Effect 3 again, playing it for fun. And
you already made the bad choice.
It's fine.
Please listen to our Dragon Age 2 podcast, which will be out by the time you hear this.
Maybe.
Probably.
No,
Something
likely.
like that.
Okay.
But yeah, that... Man, I was thinking, because there were depths of badness that you can do in that game that I had not fully understood, because I've never intentionally picked all the bad choices.
Because 99% of players do not pick those choices. Yes.
Yeah, like there's
something like 85% of all players just picked Paragon because they're boring.
Yeah, and then of that other 15%, like 14% just picked Renegade. And then that 1% is like, well, I'm at the end of the game, and I'm joined by James Vega, Edie, and that's it.
Yep.
Those are the only characters I get to have, because everyone else is dead.
Mm-hmm. And you can kill at least one of those, too, with your choice at the end.
Oh, and Liara. You've got Liara.
Oh, yes.
She's
Liara's
always there.
too.
But you can make sure that most of those people end up dead by the end of the game. You could make it so that the only person who canonically survives Mass Effect is James Vega.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Not
is a
even
nightmare.
you. Not even Shepard. Shepard dies too.
Not even you.
James Vega is the only one to make it out of this, and it's like, wow, that was fucked up.
I made eggs, loco.
Yo, Shepard. It's crazy, man. I thought you killed all those people.
I killed all my friends instead.
And there was the Food Channel, M.
Yes. Well, I was getting there.
Okay.
There's one more thing not in the Food Channel. DC decided they wanted to make a Marvel Snap competitor, and it looks bad.
DC Scump.
DC, what is it? Dual Force. And
no.
It's a card game. It doesn't look very good.
I can't wait to see how many versions of Batman and Superman are in it.
Yeah. How long until we get the Batman who laughs?
Probably immediately. Probably already in there, I would assume.
I just hope it ends up with nothing but Batman Tribal being the only good deck.
Yeah, I watched one video on it, and I was like, this seems like it's going to fall apart almost immediately as soon as they make one broken card. So we'll see. We're probably not going to play this.
I can't think of any major trading card games, competitive card games that have ever made a broken card or cards that have destroyed the meta and made people who I will not name in this call upset.
Hey, Pete.
Yeah.
Let me rap with you for just a second here, because I'm not letting this fastball pass me by. I'm swinging. Did you know that there's a Lord of the Rings Magic the Gathering set now?
No, tell me more.
It's official. It's officially licensed. J.R.R. Tolkien signed off on this, and now there are Magic cards with Gandalf.
They made Tolkien's corpse sign the form.
Yes, and the One Ring is one such card, and they've made this Lord of the Rings set legal in competitive formats, and it turns out the One Ring is broken.
You don't say.
I do. It turns out that
the One Ring is very good.
It's a very good card, and there's like two good cards in that entire set. And
they're fun. The cards are fun.
They're fun, but they're only like two good ones for playing with.
It's a commander set.
It is a commander set.
Put
they made it
commander
legal.
decks.
I feel for you, Gino. But the only card game I recognize is Yu-Gi-Oh! All else are dead to me.
Well, then, welcome to our Discord. We have plenty of pictures of censored Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards.
Yeah.
In there.
So why is the One Ring broken?
It's broken because when you play it, it makes you basically invincible. It gives you protection from everything for a turn, which is basically like taking an extra turn because they can't really hurt you during that one turn. And then you can tap it to draw a card and then get a burden counter. No, you get a burden counter and then draw a card for every burden counter that's on it. And then at the beginning of your turn, you take a damage. You lose a life for every burden counter on it. So you basically play it, you draw a card. Next turn, you lose a life. Then you draw 2 cards. You were completely invulnerable, so you've drawn 3 cards before your opponent really got a chance to interact with you hardly at all. And then you just kill them because you drew a bunch of extra cards. Some people just loop it so that they're always protected from everything. Some people are just like, nah, drawing 3 cards and being invincible for a turn is good enough. And then they just bury you in value because that's disgusting.
What if you made the One Ring enter the battlefield every turn for the rest of the game? Then you're probably going to do okay, right?
Yeah, you'll probably win.
Yeah.
So that's a thing. Also in the food channel, I was cursed with color-changing marshmallows this week. Braden, what would you do if I told you that there were color-changing marshmallows? Does this excite you?
I would say, oh, God.
Sounds like something to tell ZP about.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure he would eat those.
They changed from blue to green or pink to orange.
He'd mix them with ketchup and put them on a spaghetti, probably.
Just like Mama used to make.
Yes, the color-changing marshmallows. Put them on a steak.
Mm-hmm.
Cook it well done.
So,
and then go, why are you cyberbullying me?
Why are you kink shaming? 'Cause it's wrong. 'Cause it's bad.
Yes, those are the reasons. All right. So, speaking of things that are wrong and bad. Oh, actually, I forgot to do my Obsession of the Week. Obsession of the Week time. This one, did you know that Futurama has a new season?
On Hulu, yeah?
Yeah, I watched the first episode. It's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah. It's not every day. It's all, it's 3 out of the last 20 years that they've rebooted one of my favorite shows, so it's not like that irregular. But it's irregular enough to be notable, I would say.
Best episode?
Ooh.
When they go to the Slurm factory.
That's pretty good. My favorite episode is Love and Rocket.
Which one's that?
That's the one where Bender falls in love with the ship.
Oh, that's a good one.
Em, what's your favorite Futurama episode?
Oh boy. The one that makes you feel things.
The dog
one, probably.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yep. I don't remember
Braden?
any other ones.
There's the one where they go to the moon and it's just a shitty theme park.
The second episode?
I'm sorry, it's been a bit.
It's a good episode. You're not
my
wrong.
My Futurama cachet is not quite my Simpsons cachet.
I sprung it on you.
Because there are more okay episodes of Futurama than there are of The Simpsons.
At least pound for pound, yeah. There are probably net more good episodes of The Simpsons because The Simpsons has been on so long.
30 seasons.
A random good episode every season is probably more than Futurama's entire run. But Futurama pound for pound, I think, probably better. All right, so without further ado, let's discuss Signalis. Em, you picked this game. Tell me about it.
Signalis is a video game made by the 2-person German studio Rose Engine. It began development in 2014 and was released in 2022, so 8 years development time. It is a horror sci-fi game where you're playing as, let me get your name. I have it. Elster. You're playing Elster, who is a replica, which is basically just a robot woman. You are looking for your girlfriend, Ariane, in space, and things get weird. If I want to not spoil things, I can't say much more.
Yeah, we'll spoil things later.
Yes.
And we'll spoil this whole game, so be aware of that if you haven't. If this is somehow your first episode of this podcast,
Welcome.
we will discuss the whole story.
This game is good and you should play it, and if you listen to the episode, don't blame us for spoiling the wild twists and such.
Yeah, you should probably play it a few times before you listen.
Yes, I've played it 4 times, so take from that what you will.
Yeah, I played it once and watched M play it one time. Yeah, so you are Euler. You have landed.
No.
Isn't it?
That's your class.
Elster. Euler
is
a different class.
Yeah.
Elster. You are Elster. You're on a ship. You crash land on some strange. You wake up. It seems that you have already crash landed. You look for your partner. You are a replica, which means you are like an android.
Modeled after a real person.
Yes. Your mind is a copy of a real person. Your body is largely, it is made to look human, but it is artificial. And you are looking for your gestalt, which is a human pilot. So in the far-flung dystopian future, they have this, is it the Empire or the Nation?
The Nation.
The Nation. You are a member of the Nation, which is a fascist government.
The Nation of Yusan, which is at war with the Yusan Empire. So don't get confused.
Yes. So the Nation it sends out these pairs of replicas and gestalts because humans are weak and fragile and robots are not. But robots are mentally fragile because they keep copying the same 5 people over and over and over again to make all of their robots, and that may present some problems as we go through the game. So you land on this planet, you walk a little bit on this snow world, and you find a book. Braden, what's the book you find?
You find this small little book called The King in Yellow, which it's a popular little thing from the 19th century. Nothing weird or strange about it.
What is for those who are maybe not familiar with it? What is
it? It is one of the founding texts of the Eldritch horror genre, I would say. It inspired Lovecraft, although it is less racist than most of Lovecraft's short stories.
Most everything is
not saying much.
It's about a play that makes you crazy and may or may not have something to do with a mysterious star in the night sky that keeps getting bigger the more the play gets performed.
Yeah, so The King in Yellow is supposed to be a play. It is a play that is described in the book, but there is no play. It is a book about a play that doesn't exist. And the play is apparently like a fairly normal play, and then when you get to the back half, it drives you mad. So that's probably nothing there, that you pick up a book called that. Also that the book feels like it's calling to you, I think it says, when you pick up the book. So that's probably fine.
Yep. I've read my share of Lovecraft, and whenever anybody's called by something, it's always fine. It's never a big deal.
If you get called, don't answer. Hang up.
So you pick up this book, and then I'm pretty sure you black out and wake up inside of this facility?
Yeah. You segue. Well, there's like a radio call. We got to talk about the radio bit.
Number stations.
The number station starts to play, and you get a code, and then you have like a weird face melty sequence, and then you wake up and you are in a bathroom doing the Silent Hill 2 like staring at yourself in the mirror situation. There's a lot of homage. We're gonna talk about all the homages.
That is interesting. I didn't realize that you wake up. I forgot that you wake up staring at the mirror.
Yep. You do this second time around too. Spoilers.
Right. So you wake up, and the game is basically how would you describe it? Like an isometric perspective, Em? Or top down? Like, what would you?
Isometric is like 3/4 turned, kind of. I think this would just be top down. The style is like pixel art. It's got like what are those lines that Jeff is a really big fan of?
Scan lines.
Scan lines. It's got
scan lines. It's got it is polygonal, but it's very like low poly, kind of PS1 level. There are some warping textures.
Yep.
It's a good combination.
Yeah, it intentionally looks like you would remember a PS1 game looking, but also looks better than any PS1 game except for Vagrant Story.
It's definitely a modern take. I would like to see someone play this on a CRT TV.
Oh, yeah. It would look great.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure. Well, though maybe double scan lines would be too much if you played this on a
true.
CRT. I don't know.
I wonder if you can turn those off. I didn't try.
Yeah, I didn't try either. But you are top down. You are maneuvering Ulster around this abandoned mining facility. You start at and because it's a mining facility, it is multiple floors. So you're on the top floor.
Yep. And
you are trying to get your way to find. Who are you trying to find at first? So first you're looking for, you have a picture, it was of your girlfriend in the opening, Ariane, because you know it's her, she has white hair, and then once you get to this section, it's changed to someone else, and her name is Alina Seo, who looks like Ariane, but has not white hair, and she's got a cute little hat. Yeah, she's just... in front of some water world, which probably isn't important. Yeah, nothing to worry about there. So, Pete, how would you describe the gameplay here?
It's very dark, both tonally and lighting-wise. It's more or less a survival horror game. Like you're going around solving puzzles, picking up keys, opening doors, and then every once in a while you hear a blood-curdling scream and a robot tries to kill you. Yeah, so
a zombie robot. The robots have become evil, and melty. They look like Silent Hill enemies now.
Yeah, and it looks like it should have tank controls, but it doesn't.
Yes,
you can turn on the tank controls. You can turn those on. What I played with.
What?
You monster!
I believe in God and in the correct way of doing things. And
you are wrong.
Yeah, you are all weak and soft.
True.
I played it the way that the designers intended, without tank controls.
The default settings must be best. Otherwise, why would they?
Why would you include other settings? Heroic is the way it's meant to be played.
Mm-hmm.
Turning on tank controls when you... Okay. Well, it looks like it should have tank controls, and I guess it can. If you're sick like that. And it has a lot of the trappings of PS1 survival horror. Your aiming is shitty, I would say. It's unreliable. You're trying to target lock on enemies, and the longer you have your reticle on them, the better your target lock gets and the more damage you deal. But if you move that reticle even a little bit, your target lock will sometimes just fail to line up. You can move and shoot at the same time, but not super well. If enemies get close enough, the shoot button becomes a push away button. You can't take very much damage. There's a limited inventory. Pete, what did you think of the limited inventory? How many slots do you have, and did you feel it was enough?
Not enough. You get 6. And the game
Chris Redfield number of slots.
The game tries to make an excuse for itself by putting a poster up that basically says this is some sort of political imperative, that private property is a privilege.
But Pete, have you noticed that there's 6 sides to a not a pentagram, the hexagon? 6-sided one,
a hexagon?
Yes.
And I knew that.
the symbol of the game is a hexagon, and there's keys. There's usually 6 keys.
Nope.
And there's 6
planets.
I don't accept any of your numerological nonsense. Let me ask you. So, like, I hated this. I hated every second of this. But I also don't play much survival horror. I get that, like, this is a trope. But, like, did this enhance anyone's enjoyment of the game? Were any of y'all happy that you only had 6 inventory slots?
No.
Yes.
God, no.
Yes.
I'm not listening to anything from Tank Controls right now. But has any reasonable person?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Your weakness, your kleptomania.
You just want it all.
It's just too much cardio. I was doing so much running.
So what I like about limited inventory in a game design like this, I don't always like it. Like in Fallout, I feel like it's just a hindrance. In games where picking up all the crap is a large draw, I find encumbrance to be a needless construct. In a game like this, though, I think the tension of having to weigh which items you can afford to carry, because there are you get eventually like 5 or 6 weapons. By having 6 slots, you are basically saying you can take 2 weapons and their ammo, a flashlight, or a healing item, not both, probably, and whatever key you need, like 1 key. So if you find any items, you can't pick them up. If you can't find the door, well, you're going to have to double back to get a healing item if you get hurt or something. And this is like the level of combat efficacy. So it makes you often decide, okay, what is the gun I like the most? I'll grab that. It's ammo, a flashlight, and a key and a healing item or something like that. And making those micro decisions about what you can afford to carry and why, I think is pretty compelling in a game where resources are this limited and this scarce. My one issue that I had with it is I feel like this game, 6 might be 1 slot too few for me. I think 7 probably would have been where I didn't feel quite so much. The thing I hate about limited inventory is sometimes when you know what the solution is, you've already solved whatever combat puzzle there is, or you already know where the key needs to go, and you just don't have enough slots to carry keys or like items you find, so you just end up having to double back a whole lot of the time.
Don't bring ammo.
Yeah, you could do that.
Just dodge better.
Yeah, that's my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th playthrough. I basically just went, you know what? I don't need any guns. I only need guns sometimes. And I put all my guns away, and I just sprinted through those hallways, dodging fucking monsters like nobody's business. I was like, you know what? Actually, the inventory might be enough at 6. And
yeah, if you embrace the sprinter's lifestyle, you don't need guns, or you only need the 5 bullets that are in the gun or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if going through the first time without knowing where all the enemies are and how much damage they deal and what the room layouts are,
yeah, that's rough.
I wouldn't do that because I don't know how bad. There are some rooms that if you walk into them without a gun, you're screwed. You can retreat, but you won't be able to make progress without a gun, and it's just annoying to have to run back and get them.
This game almost made me a devout capitalist. I was like, who is the state to tell me how much property I can have?
Especially when I have a gun.
That's the quote for out of context quotes about this game. Oh boy.
Yeah, so
the
game...
one time we get a communist game and it's
I was like, yeah, maybe communism isn't so great.
Yeah, well, I mean, the political system that seems to be permeating the game is either fascism or authoritarian communism.
It's totalitarianism.
Yeah, and whatever
some kind.
Guise it takes, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the 2 languages, there are 3 languages spoken in the English translation of this game: German, Chinese, and English. So they're going full horseshoe theory here, I think.
It's Russian inspired in its propaganda posters.
It is. It's got a lot going on. There's a lot of ingredients in this gumbo, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, Em, what did you think of kind of the initial level? Like, the first 2 levels, I feel, play pretty differently from the ones that come kind of shortly thereafter. So, from a gameplay perspective, what did you think?
We're talking about the top level of the mine.
Yeah, so, like, the hospital, the level, and then the hospital. And then I guess you can also include the level below the hospital. Like, those 3 levels, before you get to the level titled Nowhere.
Yes.
Before the flesh tubes.
Yeah. Once you get to the flesh tubes, you know that things are getting weirder in your survival horror game. So the top level is pretty normal-ish. It's like a re-education center where you are like running around learning the mechanics. You pick up your first gun, which is just a pistol. You get to do some simple puzzles. You don't have the radio yet, so you don't have to fiddle with that. But this is also where you meet another character, Isa, who we'll probably talk about when we get more into characters in the game, who you'll see a few times. Not looking too bad to start. She's here looking for her sister. So,
yeah, this place looks pretty fucked up, and she looks pretty fine.
Yeah, she looks okay. This place has definitely seen better days. There's no meat doors yet, I think, but it's grungy. There are some bodies.
Run down, industrial.
Yes, very industrial. A lot of locked doors. Yeah, and then you jump into a hole, because that's what we're going to do a bunch of in this game. You've already dropped down one hole, so why not another one? Drop down a hole, you get to the hospital.
There's always a hospital level.
Yes.
It's true.
So this is how you know things are getting weirder, when you see some of the Yules?
Yeah.
The nurse of this game chopping meat.
Also, never a good sign. No one's ever chopping meat. It's like, oh, some fresh sirloin for you all.
Oh, wow. Made you a steak. Here you go.
You don't generally need to chop multiple times.
Yeah, you just kind of cut that and it's good to go. So now the enemies start to appear. You do some more puzzles. This section requires a number of keys to be found. And this is where it's going to teach you stuff like putting items together. You need to make a wrench, like from 2 bits of a wrench.
It's a socket wrench, right?
Yeah, a socket wrench. And then you open a grate. What else? There's a key that's stuck inside of a skull somehow, which you need to X-ray in order to see like what the code is on the key, and then you take a blank key to a computer, and then you draw that symbol on it, and then it serves as the replacement for that first key.
There are puzzles with like radio frequencies. We also get a radio.
Yes,
at some point. And Braden, what did you think of the section where you get the radio? Because this is the first instance of first person in the game.
So the game will cut to first person sequences where you can really just see all of the polygonal stuff, and it's one of those things where it's like you're like, where am I? Am I on a train? Why am I on a train? Why am I on this cold outside area? So it's one of those things where it looks like it's a flashback of some kind, but you still have the items when you return. So what could this possibly mean?
Yeah,
maybe there's something going on. I don't know.
Don't know why you would go into a memory and then come back with a radio thingy.
Oh, well.
Nothing. Don't sweat it too much.
It's also, I think, really interesting, just the first person, because it is still trying to obey PS1 era graphics. while still being first person. It's a look I've not really seen before. That's trying to do detailed texture work, but with PS1 level constraints, and playing normally. And the game is not as clunky as the handful of first person PS1 games were. So it's a cool thing to see, like throwing modern technology at this aesthetic. I don't think I've seen it before, at least not in a game I've played. I think there are some indie games that might have done this before, but this is one of the coolest implementations I've seen.
I have played those indie games, and I can tell you this is probably the sharpest implementation of that aesthetic, because it's not going for a 1-to-1, but it's going for it's trying to evoke that look.
Yeah, for sure. So the hospital level ends with one of the only boss fights in the game. You fight a Mina, which is the name. It's a mining robot. I hated looking at it.
Why?
Why? Because its face melts?
Because, it starts with a normal face. It starts with a normal face, and then it vomits blood.
Yeah.
And then it's like face shield comes down, and then you have to fight it. You have to run away from it for this whole fight as it like summons
and it tries
aura
to shoot
units.
you with a rail gun.
Yeah. And you have to shoot it when it's down on its knees weeping blood, and if the blood touches you, you take damage.
Yep.
And apparently, so there's German, I forget if it's German or Chinese that pops up on the screen when the Mina summons in other units, but it says like calling in assistance from backup unit, and that's why the aura units come in. And I think in these levels, like we get introduced to some of the different enemy types. Like there's the Euler, it looks very much like a Silent Hill nurse. The aura unit, they are little hunchbacked little goobers who climb out of vents and attack you. Did any of you get jump scared by those?
A little bit.
Point?
Yeah. Sometimes they come out of the ground behind you and then chase you around, but they're pretty slow, so you can escape them.
The in-universe explanation for them is pretty good, too. Apparently, they just get sort of like emotionally overwhelmed and retreat into the vents. And then after that, the like advice manual is like, don't go after them. They're in the vents. Leave them in the vents.
Just let them do that. They'll come back eventually.
Like, let them do their thing. It's fine.
Yeah, and you find a bunch of dossiers on these different replica units as you go through the game. You'll see a propaganda poster that's like, this unit's so cool. Look at them. And then you'll find a dossier that's like explaining the robot and what its functions are in a like straightforward way. Like the aura units are mass produced, basically factory workers. Eulers are mass produced domestic workers, so they do cooking and cleaning and nursing and stuff like that. There's the star units, which are cops basically. The Minas are miners. But then you'll also find a dossier that's like basically the psych profile on these robots. Because as we said earlier, these robots, they're androids, but they are all copies of the same person over and over and over again. So like there's one person who is the imprint for every Euler. There's one person who's the imprint for every aura. And so they have known issues, preventing them from having their quote-unquote gestalt memories resurface. So remembering the person who made them and what happened in their lives instead of being a good, obedient android with individuality. What was your favorite weak mental quirk, Pete?
Oh, man.
Robots?
So this is, I forget which one you are. Euler?
You are Elster.
You're the Elster.
So the Elster's supposed to be very sort of like stoic and independent. So they're like, look, don't make friends with them. Don't give them books. Don't give them pictures. Just ignore them. Let them sit in the corner. Otherwise, they'll go crazy. So like you basically just have to ignore these things constantly or they're done.
Yeah, and whatever you do, don't mention the war. If you mention the war, they will hate that.
Definitely do not show them like a picture of the war.
All of these, they like to sing together. Let them sing together. Do not separate them from one another. They will get very lonely.
Yes. And who knows what will happen.
Do not feed them after midnight.
Yeah, it's basically all that. Like one of our antagonists, the elder of this facility, which is like the guy in charge. His whole thing is he really likes the Falk, who's the leader of the facility. And if she is not available, he will get a little fucked up. And as you might imagine, she's not available right now. And he's going to get fucked up.
Yeah, he is designed to be second in command, and if anything happens to the person who is in charge, he gets really sad. And then it says, like, let him pick up whatever. Like, he might have little obsessions. Let him do that. He'll probably move on to something else, and that's probably fine. But let him have his little diversions. And what was your favorite weird eccentricity of these replicas?
I'm looking at the list. I wanted to mention the Calibris, but they were not my favorite eccentricity. These are the, like, psychic. They are the Commando Control Unit Bioresonance Technology Replica Hummingbird is their full designation when you actually translate what they're called. They are the Psychers, and they like form a neural network with each other.
Don't make your robots form neural networks.
Yeah, it's kind of a bad idea. In order to kill them, you like can do a little radio puzzle. Their whole thing is they want to be in a hive mind with each other. And if you cut them off from one another, they're gonna not feel good about that. So when you find them in their enemy form, they're like wriggling around with a swollen head on the ground, and your screen flashes with like a radio station, and you gotta tune it to that radio station, and like find a way to break their psychic backlash thing that they're doing. And if you wait too long, it will die, or you will die. But if you find the right frequency, they'll die. Or you could just shoot them once with a gun, which I didn't do.
Yeah, that was... So if you put in the right frequency for them, it will point toward... Like, there'll be some lines drawn on screen pointing at the real one. And if you shoot that one with a gun, it dies. You can also fiddle around with the radio, and eventually that will kill them too. But I love that in the description for the Calibris, it says, because they're a hive mind, if one of them starts to go, you just need to kill all of them.
They're all going. They're just burn it all to the ground.
And
there's no salvaging.
Did you say you have the full list up?
I do, yes.
Isn't there one that just loves cats?
Was there one that loves cats? Is that
the Mina? So the Mina.
The Mina, yeah.
The Mina, it says. So the Mina, when it comes to, they say that for the Mina,
stuffed animals must be given as fetish objects, though those resembling cats should be avoided as they might cause resurfacing gestalt memories.
They hate cats. Yes. I would have been a terrible
They will go crazy as soon
they like
as
cats
you show
too much.
That. Yes.
Yeah, it says that their neural pattern is extremely stable. Little has to be done to keep Minas happy. They get along well with most other models thanks to their sometimes submissive, sometimes motherly personalities. Unlike other models, diary keeping is not mandatory for persona stabilization. Yeah, so like that's funny. I like the the storks are not nice.
Yeah, they're fucked up.
Great legs though.
Yeah, they do have stilt legs. Their whole thing is they initially have a short temper. Training them in patience early after deployment is key, as their neural patterns are less stable than other models. Failing to do so may yield an extremely volatile personality prone to cruelty and violence. A common strategy is pairing them closely with an older star unit. Storch's personality is stabilized by showering or bathing. Books on history or mythology work well as fetish objects. And like one of the early levels, you go through all of the housing units, basically, for each of the different replica types. And in the Storch room, you can find a painting of Saturn eating his son.
Mm-hmm.
That's to keep them sane, Pete.
It's one of the creepiest paintings ever made.
Yeah. This is actually relevant to a secret ending, which we'll talk about at the ending part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Remember that painting.
So I feel like now is a good time to turn to when things get weird. So once you get past the mines...
Totally normal until now.
So, well, we go through the mines, we get pushed down the elevator shaft, we see a bunch of ourselves dead at the
didn't
bottom.
Mention that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a whole lot of stuff going on.
Your fall is cushioned.
Yeah.
Because there are a bunch of dead Elster corpses in the mine shaft.
Yes. Probably nothing. It's fine. Adler is the one who pushes you down there.
So when you get pushed down, if you check the elevator shaft and like try to examine the pile of U corpses, your character says the elevator shaft is blocked.
Yeah.
No further commentary.
Just says the elevator is out of order. And you're like, yeah, I wonder why. And then you do a bunch of stuff. This is like bring keys to places. The level once you get to this part, you are trying to find a administrator key card so that you can go down the mine shaft, and then we get to the mine. There's no boss here. It's just bring key from this place to this one that's marked with an owl, and then the owl key leads to the library, and then you find the king in yellow again. Yay! Also, there are seals on the side of the king in yellow, and there's less of them every time you find it. So that's probably fine too.
Also, we didn't say, but at the end of I forget if it's the hospital level or the level before the hospital, you find a plate that's made of basalt, I think.
Yeah.
And it's warm to the touch.
Yeah. This is what teleports you to the place where you get the radio. So, sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
Totally normal.
Just a good old six-sided piece of basalt that's warm to the touch.
Store that shit. It'll come back later.
You put that in a box. It'll be fine. So yeah, when you get to the mine shaft, there's a scene where the administrator gets into a tussle with Isa, the lady you met earlier. She takes his gun and he pushes her down a shaft, I think.
Yep.
And she stabs him.
He gets stabbed in the eye. Remember, getting stabbed in the eye. This is important.
Always the right eye.
Always the right eye. We'll discuss this later.
You go down the elevator shaft, and now we're basically in straight-up Silent Hill Otherworld territory, I would say. And as you're going through the game at this point, you've been hearing about how someone went to the bottom of the mines. Falky, the head of this facility, went to the bottom of the mines, came back. She was not the same after she came back. After she came back, everyone in the facility started getting sick. All the gestalts started melting, basically. They just died and melted into goo. And then all of the replicas started losing their skin and going mad. So there's some big... Like, at this point of the game, Pete, were you getting big Dead Space vibes?
Oh, sure. I mean, anytime people start to melt into goo, I mean, there are only so many goo melting games. And then, I mean, you start to see flesh tunnels. You're in space. I mean, the only thing it was missing was basically limb chopping.
It's a mine, also.
And you're not
and they
like
dug too deep.
the same sort of like, oh, you're not really like a soldier. You're just like the person here right now sort of deal too. Because we're not like a military model. We're like an administrative one, right? Or like
you're a survivalist. Like you were made for going on ships long haul because you don't need a lot of maintenance. Yeah, so like it was very Dead Spacey, I think, by this point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess we did. Oh, go ahead, Em.
I was gonna say we also had a little trip to a deserted beach in first person around this time, right before this transitions over, which is something out of a painting series by Arnold Backlund, a Swedish symbolist who made a 8-painting series of an island called the Isle of the Dead. So this is it was a very common piece to find in Eastern Europe in the 20th century. They are like just paintings of this weird as fuck island, which you will see a lot of. This beach is also based on the painting series, which also has 8 versions of it. Shores of Oblivion by Eugene Bacht, who is a German symbolist. This is themes. We're going to see a lot of these. And you spend 5 minutes in this like weird dream sequence wandering around the beach, and you'll find notes. Some of those notes say something along the lines of, great holes secretly are digged where earth's pores ought to suffice, and things have learned to walk that ought to crawl. This is repeated from the opening. This is from H.P. Lovecraft's The Festival, which appears inside the Necronomicon. So that's probably fine.
Yeah, that's probably fine. And also, as you keep going down further and further, you keep finding notes about how people, like Alder, the administrator, has a journal, and when you read that journal, you notice that the days progress in the journal linearly until all of a sudden every day is the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts saying, I feel like I've had the strongest sense of deja vu ever. Every day feels like I've lived it before. Why do I keep writing the same day every day? Why is time not moving? Things are weird. It feels like when I'm in this room, I'm in 10 versions of this room. What's going on? So I would say some looping might be happening.
What if it was a time loop?
Signs seem to point to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so at first it has very big dead space, like they found an artifact and that made everything turn to flesh monsters. Then there's also a looping element. There's this nowhere level, which is when the level just really becomes like the other world in Silent Hill. At one little mechanical thing we didn't say, when you kill enemies in this game, they don't stay dead.
Sometimes they get back up
with fire. Which sucks. Sucks every time it happens.
Mm-hmm. Or you just run really fast past them and they won't get up.
Braden, what is nowhere? Why don't you explain what this thing is?
You like flesh pits?
Love flesh pits. Tell me more.
You know you're in a horror game when you get to the flesh pit. It is an undulating mass that also has some nice little grungy, even more grungiest industrial look to it. There's fun razor wire traps. There is again a large orifice you have to jump down.
Yeah, where you fight the second boss of the game.
Yeah, where you fight this, as you said, maybe the most Silent Hill looking of the enemies, which is just like a cage with a bunch of writhing arms poking out of it.
and 4 legs.
Yeah.
So it's 4 legs, a cage, a mass of flesh, and then arms, just kind of coming at you. It's very Francis Bacon of it. Very messed up looking. That boss fight's kind of interesting. You need to damage the boss and then wait for a little while because Isa's on the screen with you and she'll shoot it if you just delay for long enough. This level also messes with your perspective when you go through doors. Usually if you enter a door on the left, you will come out on the next screen on the right. In this level, you go in a door on the left and then you come out the top. Or you go up the top and then you come out the right. It's really disorienting, and they take your map away.
And there is no map for this area. So
that made me angry. I was furious.
It also made Gino angry.
Thankfully, it's not that big, but yeah, it not having the map and there are enough dangerous enemies that I did not want to backtrack too much or explore that much. This is probably the most effective the game is, I think, of making the world feel claustrophobic. I did not enjoy investigating Nowhere at all. And Em, what is the goal? What is the thing you're trying to do in Nowhere?
So in Nowhere, you're going to collect several of the basalt plates that you've, the one that you found earlier, is related to. They are, let me get the list because these are relevant. One of them is the flesh plate, which is creepy. Hold on. I will get the whole list of them so I don't mess up the order. Plate of balance. The plate of balance is found by doing a balance puzzle like Indiana Jones, where you have the plate on a little stand and you have to get a what do they call those little dolls?
A Stroika doll.
A Stroika doll.
Russian nesting doll.
Yes, the Russian nesting doll. You get 3 parts of it and combine them, and then that makes the puzzle balance out, and that's how you get the balance plate. There is the Eternity plate, which is the one you got earlier from where you found the radio, so you brought that over. The plate of flesh, I believe, is in one of those barbed wire puzzles, which you need your flashlight to get through. Plate of knowledge. Where does this one come from? Let me check. It doesn't say.
The plate of knowledge was from there's a puzzle where you have to find rings and put them onto a statue of a princess.
A white-haired woman.
Yeah, you put the rings on the right fingers, and then she's got one hand covering her face, and then the hand moves away, and there's a plate behind it.
Yes.
It's where her face should be.
Yeah. The plate of love you get from putting incense into a, what do you call those things? It's like an altar.
It's like an offering bowl.
Yeah. And then that opens up and you get the plate of love, and then the plate of sacrifice, which is probably the most on the nose. You go through a barbed wire puzzle, which is very long and has a lot of enemies chasing after you. Like the auras come up out of the floor, and then at the end of it, in order to escape without going through a million enemies, you just have to run through some of that barbed wire to loop back around.
Very Saw-esque.
Yeah, so you have to make a sacrifice to get the plate. And then you bring that all back to a door, and 6 keys go into the door and make it hexagon, and then it opens up and you find the red gate, which is an archway, which is where Falk went when she went and got corrupted. Adler is here, I believe, and he's like, you shouldn't go there. And
it's bad.
It's fucked up out there. You should. It's very red here, and you're like, it doesn't matter. And then you fucking walk off. And where does it take you?
The end of the game, right?
Yeah, the end of the game. So you go to the Penrose, which is your ship. Also remind me, before we end this, I have to tell you who Sir Roger Penrose is, because that's relevant. You go to your ship, and you try real hard to open the thing, and you fucking break your arm and fall off the ship and die. And that's the end of the game, and then the credits roll.
Yeah, you rip your own arm off. Credits.
Yeah.
Did anyone get got by this?
By like this being the ending?
Yeah.
Yeah, it got me for a hot minute.
Did you think like, oh, that's it, we're done?
I was like, wow, none of this game made any sense.
Bad ending.
Why do people like this?
You got the bad end. I'm sorry.
I was like, first the inventory slots, now this. 0 out of 10.
Not a fan. And then you go back to the menu screen, and in the previous version of the menu screen, there's an eye, and it follows your cursor, but now it doesn't because you fucking died. And then no matter what you hit, it just puts you back in the game.
Yeah, and also when you load up the game, originally there was a kind of double-layered hexagon. So there were an outer layer of hexagon and then an inner hexagon inside of it. The outer hexagon is gone now, and it's just the inner hexagon that is there. So you re-enter the game, because it turns out you weren't dead, but it plays a bunch of cutscenes with like cryptic German, some like Chinese symbols. Also, I think when you're trying to open the door and like moving around, there's an entire cutscene where like all of those different islands of the dead or shores of oblivion, like those paintings, play over and over and over again. And at some point, it overlays your character's textures. So like you are the island moving around.
What does it mean?
There's sections where you see Elster just over and over and over, like a bunch of characters that look kind of like Elster, all kind of in a sequence. Then there are a bunch of characters that look like Alina Seo, all in a sequence. There's looping, let's say. Let's say maybe it's variations on a single theme or variations on a single moment over and over and over again. When you start moving towards the ship, like even before you rip your own arm off, you see corpses of yourself outside of the ship. Then you go inside the ship after you wake up and you're all damaged. You can find some writings that say like, I've been cycle 3000, I'm losing my hair and my teeth, everything hurts. You find a corpse of yourself next to a giant lump of flesh in the cryopod, where the cryopod used to be in your ship. And you rip an arm off of a corpse of yourself and rip their armor off to replace your chest armor. So you cover up your cyber ribs with this armor. And you're just like, well, can't stop, won't stop. And then you wake up again at the beginning of the game.
No, wait. There's one more thing here.
Oh, okay.
This is important. This is where you get the clip of the undestroyed Penrose, where you are just on a pleasant jaunt through space with your human girlfriend, and she's like, we should be getting the 3000th cycle update pretty soon. We should celebrate. It's our anniversary. And then you guys dance and hug and watch a movie, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, this is fine. This is fine still. And then all of a sudden you're in the destroyed ship. And we don't know how it got from one to the other, but I'm sure we'll find out.
Yeah,
we're
so
getting closer.
You wake up at the beginning of the game again, and now everything's even more fucked up. So the flesh that was at the bottom of the mine now is just like on the first floor. you redo the first floor, but a bunch of the level is blocked by undulating flesh walls. You can get, I think you try to go down a level, and where you once entered the hospital, it goes, and then Rotgren? What is the planet?
So
Rotfront, and then Rotfront.
So we jump down another hole. We've jumped down another 2 holes at this point, because you jump down a hole to get to this from the ship, and then you jump down another hole, and then all of a sudden you're in Rotfront, which is a different planet.
Yeah, up until now you were on Leng, ostensibly.
Yes.
And Leng, so there are theories that this is taking place in the solar system. So if that is the case, Leng would be Pluto, and Rotfront would be, they think, Titan, I think?
Yeah.
A moon of Saturn.
Rotfront's the moon of Jupiter because it has the red dot, and then Heimat, which is another one, they have a reason to believe that's Titan. I don't know why. We'd never see this in the game.
Well, you do see a solar...
We see stuff.
Yeah.
There's posters.
And you do see the solar system. There's a star chart that you can look at. But yeah, you basically jump from one location to another with very little warning, and they are several planets apart. So the idea that it's just down a hole, either physics is being weird or something else is being weird. And Rotfront is a pretty straightforward level. You are trying to assemble a bunch of tarot cards. Those tarot cards allow you to solve a puzzle where there's just some phases of the moon. And then you can kind of go towards the end of the game. We meet Isa one more time, though.
Yeah.
Braden, did you have what happened to Isa?
She melts into a flesh puddle.
Why'd she do that?
Because she found out
what's going around.
Her sister is probably dead, and she's probably dead, and we're all probably dead. Oh,
yeah. That's basically
she finds an altar in her parents' place, and that altar, in most Eastern cultures, at least in Japan, you will put an altar or a family shrine up for family members who have passed away. So her the shrine means that she is long been dead, and so she does a I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark, and turns into a puddle of flesh right in front of you. And also Isa, I believe her last name is Ito. Shout out to Junji Ito, Japanese horror writer. I think that's what they were going for there.
I think so.
Anything else? Anything else in Rotfront that people want to call out?
Yeah. So this is basically the childhood home of Ariane and also the Ito twins. So we should probably talk about them a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah. So there's the Ito twins are Isa is one of them. You met her. Her sister Erica seems to be dead before the events of the game. They grew up together to a certain extent. They went to the same school. There's another first-person scene where you are playing as Isa and you stumble upon Ariane getting beaten up after school in one of the classrooms. And you know what their classroom was? What number? Pete, guess what number their classroom was?
69.
Nice.
No, good guess. Good guess, but no. 512.
That's a good one.
Guess what number the ship is?
Is that 169?
Or
512.
512.
No, it's 420.
The number 512 comes up in several places in this game.
Guess what? Yeah, there's a hospital room where you have to put in all the tarot cards to kind of get the solution to the final puzzle. Guess what hospital room it is?
512.
512.
Woo, we got there.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stacking.
Yeah, it's the amount of RAM in the Xbox 360.
Mm-hmm.
512.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Never forget.
Yeah. Also, at some point, Isa lost her eye, like right before she melts into a puddle. Let's talk about the eyes getting gouged out.
Which eye is it, Em?
It's the right eye.
The right sensing eye, a theme emerging.
Again, gets stabbed out. Adler gets stabbed in the eye by Isa. Elster gets stabbed in the eye by Adler a little bit later. Lilith, who we'll talk about also in this part, I guess, is missing an eye. So this one's the deep lore. I just name dropped someone you don't even know yet. Isa loses an eye before she dies. There's also an item you can get which takes screenshots, basically. And that is a replacement eye. If you are familiar with the story of Odin in Norse mythology, Odin lost his right eye, which is symbolic of the gaining of greater knowledge. So, take from that what you will.
Perhaps that knowledge is forbidden.
Perhaps so. Perhaps this is, if you lose your right eye, you are now doomed by the narrative.
Maybe, at least they don't make you stick a needle in your eye like Dead Space 2.
That's true. That part's pretty fucked up. They could have done that.
But they didn't, thankfully.
But they did.
Yeah, so you get through Rotfront.
Yes.
And this leads us to the final boss.
Who's the final boss?
Falky, the robot that was the first robot corrupted. She is the leader of the station that you're originally on. So you go through a single door. You go through an impossible door, and you end up kind of back in the room that you were in at the very beginning of the game after you picked up the King in Yellow. You make a left turn, and then you are in a final save room. You go through, and Falky has a bunch of notes that say things like, ever since I came back from the other side of that arch, I haven't felt like myself. I've felt like there's me and another person in here. I'm not fully them, but I'm not fully myself. And it seems like Falky is being polluted with memories of Elster, because she remembers dancing with Ariane and being on the ship and all that sort of stuff. So those memories are bleeding into her memories. And she's decided that she's just going to embrace this other person because she wants to meet her girlfriend, basically. And so you fight her. It's a very Silent Hill 4 final boss fight. You take the boss down, but then you have to pick up items. She has spears. You have to pick up the spears that she drops, and you stab them through her head to defeat her. And every time you stab her, she warps you to another location that you've been before, and you continue fighting there. After it's all done, you can get one of up to 4 endings. 3 in your first playthrough are options. 1 you have to do on your second playthrough. Pete, what ending did you get?
Which time through?
First time.
First time after the fake one?
Yeah, after the fake one.
Yes.
I didn't quite manage to save. I got into the ship, and then I got there, and she was like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, that sucks." And then I died.
You got the memory ending.
Yep.
That's the one.
Yep.
Braden, which one did you get?
I also got the memory ending my first time through this game.
Okay, I also got the memory ending. Em,
Damn.
Which one did you get?
So the first one I got was Promise, which is different from you guys's, but I got every ending except for Leave, which takes too long. So throughout the game, you're being told, remember our promise. When you have flashes of memories from your time with Ariane, and based on what you have gathered, here's the summary of the game. I wrote out a little thing, and this is going to be leading into what the promise ending is. So, after a destined-to-fail propaganda expedition to discover habitable planets outside the solar system, the Penrose 512 mission ended shortly after 3,000 cycles, with the Elster replica dying of radiation poisoning after putting the Gestalt pilot, Ariane, into cryosleep in the hopes that it would save her life. More than 512 squared cycles later, the Penrose crash lands on Eternity, which is the red planet where the actual Penrose is. Ariane's bioresonance, which is a psychic ability that we haven't really discussed yet, begins to grow.
It's the sci-fi explanation for why the units have psychic powers, the ones that do.
Yes. So bioresonance, it's a thing in the game to explain basically everything supernatural. So Ariane's bioresonance goes out of control and distorts time and space. She mentally reaches out to the Elsters in the universe, or, depending on whose theory you believe, she starts creating Elsters from nothingness, because that's the thing bioresonance can do, and gives them the memories from the Elster she knew, and calls them to locations significant to her. So, like the radio station she worked at, the Mines of Lang, which she would have been sent to if her Penrose application got rejected, and her former home of Rotfront. So, the three places that we have seen in this game. The distortions trap the residents in those locations in a time loop, where they begin to suffer from personality degradation and then decay. Most of the Elsters die on the journey. Also, Isa gets brought back from the dead in a similar distortion of reality. So, why did she do all that? Because Ariane was awaiting an Elster to successfully return to keep the original's promise, which was to kill her before the cancer does, because their radiation shielding has gone down, and things are starting to get funky on the ship. And in the promise ending, you choke Ariane until she dies, and then you die. So that's the promise, baby.
So yeah, there's kind of two explanations you can go with here. A boring one and a fun one.
I went with the fun one.
So the boring one is that this is a Jacob's Ladder situation. This is a Silent Hill 2 situation. Or one of the possible Silent Hill 2 explanations that people like. Your character, Elster, has been dead the whole time. You're in Ariane's dying mind. There is no bioresonance. It's just all her in a spaceship dying of radiation poisoning, just like remembering her life and her girlfriend. And it's all kind of a narrative trying to make sense of the end of life. I think that's a boring explanation. The other explanation is bioresonance allows these psychics to communicate with people over long distances. But there's a bunch of write-ups that you can find that say bioresonance some people can sense bioresonance and have bioresonance, but some people can sense that the universe has a tune to it, and certain special bioresonant people can actually play a tune that changes reality itself, that changes the universe. So the fun explanation is that Ariane has the ability to actually change the world with her pain. And it's an Alessa situation from Silent Hill.
But here's the problem with that explanation. Not with the explanation itself, but with what happens in the game. She has the power to change the world, and no one tells her this, and she gets sent on a space expedition that is maybe wasn't going to do anything at all.
I mean, it says that in some of the documents you find, it says that Ariane seems to have powerful bioresonance, and she may be a threat to the existence of the Empire, so we should send her far away. So it's like intentionally a suicide mission that they send her on.
She also doesn't know that she has it, right?
Yes,
like,
she doesn't know, but people who have evaluated her do.
Yes, so we want to get her as far away from here as possible so that maybe she won't explode like a bomb. But unfortunately for them...
She does.
She does. And she dies... or doesn't die in the cryopod, and then the events of the game happen. And you have to kill her.
And I mean, there's a lot of really interesting things if you take I think the world is much richer if it's not just dying mind explanation. Pete, did you find it similarly, or...
I agree with you that I think it's much more interesting if like this is actually happening, and I think bioresonance gives you a sort of out that way. My only criticism here is the world too rich? So like this is an
what sense?
Like allow me to elaborate. This is an interesting story insofar as like if you just had the Gestalt memories, you already have all these replicas making these androids. You could just have these androids coming one after another to this planet for some reason, trying to fulfill this same promise. But then you layer on all these questions of bioresonance. You have this sort of like unpacking of this like war between a fascist dictatorship and its offshoot planets. You've got these like weird sort of like mind games getting played with the other like androids going in and out. Like I think all these layers ultimately just become too much. It's a hat on a hat sort of situation for me.
Love to have a hat on a hat, though.
So
I mean, it depends on the hats, I guess.
That's true. Braden?
When I finished this game last year, it was very much a ambiguous vibe sort of thing. Like I did not dig as deeply as you did. Like the hey, maybe this is the hell within the mind sort of thing. I feel like that's pretty obvious.
I mean, the game says maybe this is hell.
Maybe this is hell. Maybe, listen, a horror game that takes place inside someone's psychological hellscape. What? Never seen that before. But I think there's a lot of the details in the world building help it as a horror game, and I think a lot of it gives it texture. And I definitely was when I finished the game, I was like, I'm not quite sure what happened, but seems like these lesbians are in for a bad time. And it was a vibes thing for me.
Yes.
Like this entire game's aesthetic, like now that I have actually seen, in some people's interpretations of the ending, I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But for me, this game's strengths are as a mood and a tone thing, and a just weird eldritch bullshit with robot lesbians. It's good.
Yeah, and I think that there's enough here, and to Pete's point about there maybe being too much lore, I think that there's enough pathways you can go down when thinking about this game that it allows you to fill in as many gaps as you want in a bunch of different directions that I think are interesting as a thought, as a game to think about, right? Like, you've got The King in Yellow, this book that is cursed, basically. There's a ritual that you're performing. Like, every time you get through one of the sections where you perform a ritual, like you open a major door, you use one of those 6 things to open something. Every time you find that book, there are seals that are missing from it. There's the implication, like some of the logs say that at the center of Lang, there was something down there. Like there was an eldritch abomination that was awoken by this bioresonance. So like maybe the world is cursed. Maybe there are bigger, more unsettling things out here. Or it can all be explained by this one person and her personal journey. Or it could all be explained by this person's biography. Like there's nothing else going on. You can also ask, is Elster really there? Is Elster the same Elster that tried to find, that fell in love with Ariane, right? Is that the same Elster? Are other robots being turned into Elster? So, like, you wake up in a bathroom staring at a mirror. You find so many Euler units that are just staring at mirrors throughout this game. Like, are you just seeing what you want to see when you see yourself normal? Like, Adler, you find him looking completely normal, and then the next time you see him, he's missing all of his face. Like, is reality, are your perceptions being played with in this game? And I think that having so many nice threads just allows this game to have a lot more staying power than if it had a more straightforward, less textured narrative. You know, a straightforward narrative would have been fine. I think a vague narrative also would have been fine, but this one has just enough specifics and just enough oddities where you can be thinking about the time loop. You can be thinking about the references to the Shores of Oblivion. Like, there's the references to other works of literature, right? And so I think that it manages to be really dense in a game that's like 10 hours. There's a lot of things to mull over. And for an indie game that 2 people made, I'm really impressed with the amount of depth here that's coherent. You know, there are some games that go for depth but lose trade coherence for depth. I don't think this one makes that exchange. I think it manages to sow just enough lines of logic that you can arrive at several different conclusions for what happened in this game, each of which are equally supported by the evidence, and that's not always true. And I think that's cool. It makes for an interesting read. It makes for a game that you played it 4 times?
Yeah, in different ways. I was trying to get all the endings.
Should we mention the secret ending?
Yeah, I want to mention the third ending that we didn't talk about, which is Leave, which is you basically get all the way to the ship, and then, depending on the way you play, you go to the final door, and then you refuse to go in, and you just turn around, walk off into the desert, and then you get a ways away, and then you just fall over dead. Which seems like the worst ending.
Yeah, and it's also worth mentioning the corpses of the Leave ending. Like when you die next to the tank, that is the corpse that you steal an arm and body armor from. You see the corpse from the Leave ending as you're walking up to the ship for the false ending. Mm-hmm. So all of the endings happen.
All of the endings are canonical.
Yeah. With promise, potentially, if you think that time is linear in this game, that's the only one that that would be last.
Yes.
Assuming that all these endings have happened.
And then there's the fourth one.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
There's not like a dog or anything, is there? Turns out like he was doing it the whole time.
It's not the dog ending, but it's close in like Silent Hill terms. Like, they've had endings where there's some weird, like, you need to press up 70 times
like
in
the
one room.
dog or UFO ending in that it's obscure as shit.
Yeah. So,
and people figured it out because of an ARG.
Yes. Do you know anything about how the ARG worked, Braden? Or just know it exists?
Wasn't it like straight up people had to decode certain sound files in an oscilloscope or something?
Yeah, it was like translating some of the radio stations that you can find throughout the game into pictures, which I don't know how the fuck you do that. And then using those pictures, you find a certain room in the game, and you switch your radio to a frequency that doesn't have anything on it. So you need to get a code, go to a room at a certain point in the game, and then find a key that is not indicated at all on the map. And you do this 3 times.
And then after doing that 3 times...
And then after doing that 3 times, you go to the end of the game, you go do the, like, moon phase puzzle, and you need to have your keys in your inventory before you do the puzzle. As I found out
the hard way.
Yes. I found this out the hard way because I had the keys, And I was like, wait, it's not working. And I went and I tried to do the tarot puzzle again. And then when I went back, I had switched them out for the tarot cards. So I didn't have the keys and I had to redo the entire last level again.
Freaking inventory, man.
Yeah. Well, I refused to save, yes. I was basically trying to speedrun, and in my hubris, I only saved at the beginning of the level. So the ending that you get, you bring those keys into the final room, and then instead of looking at the book that is on the table in front of you, you instead turn 180 degrees, and there is a safe behind you. The safe has 3 locks on it. You enter the keys, the 3 keys, and then you remember at the beginning of the game when the 3-tone oddity played, and then you are given a code of numbers, like a long string of numbers, like
that's the code.
4 sets of numbers. You enter that code into the safe, and then the safe opens, and inside is a plant, which we have seen several times in the game before. You take... Oh, also...
They're white lilies.
They are white lilies. That's important. And above the safe is a coded message, which I did not even notice when I opened it, but I found it's on the wiki. It says, "If only we could live forever as we do now." So, you take the lilies, you go off to a ritual site on the red planet, and you put the lilies on an altar, and then you fall down dead. And it pans out, and it's like 6 pillars in the hexagonal shape, and in the center is a hexagonal glowy item, which I still have no idea what this is. But
and there are also 6 dead versions of you on by each of the pillars.
Yeah, so 6 versions of you around 6 pillars around a hexagonal thing, and then
666, y'all.
Whoa! And then we get a shot of the dance that you did with Ariane in your memory, except now it's into the destroyed ship, and this seems to be the way you live forever as we do now.
You're missing one big part though after you do the ritual. A giant eye.
Oh yeah, I was getting to that.
Comes down through the sky.
Yes.
And looks and stares at it, and then you get to dance forever.
Yeah, maybe you made a deal with the King in Yellow.
Maybe. For those who do not know flower meanings, white lilies...
Who doesn't know flower meanings?
I know, right? White lilies represent a rejuvenation of the soul, purity, commitment, and rebirth. So, there you go. That's the artifact ending. And some believe it to be the canonical ending, or the good ending, just because you have to do a whole bunch of shit.
And you get to dance.
And you get to dance at the end. You get to live forever in the dying girl's mind who is not going to ever die and also make the world really fucked up. So...
A little flesh zombies are a small price to pay for dancing with your girlfriend.
That's true. Yep.
So there's one other thing I just want to say about the game before we wrap.
Yes.
This game has almost no jump scares in it other than when things come up through the floor.
Yeah.
And I respect the amount of restraint that this game exhibits. It knows that it has built a creepy atmosphere, that there is tension inherent in what it has made, and it does not feel the need to go to cheap jump scares. Every time the game went to first person, I was expecting some creepy thing to jump out of the corner and scare me. Didn't happen. I was expecting at some point one of the pieces of art to move or something when you're staring at it. None of that stuff happens, and I really respect that. Horror games go for that cheap move a lot. I mean, we played Layers of Fear, and that was all that game was.
Yep.
Is that the painting game?
Yep.
Yeah, that was the shitty painting game.
Yeah, that was bad.
Those people are remaking Silent Hill 2.
Yeah.
So, like, I would just want to call that out. Like, the developers of this game really knew what they were doing. It was 2 people. I believe it took them 8 years to make this game.
Correct.
So, like, the amount of care and knowledge of the genre that's exhibited here, this is probably the best survival horror game I've played, new survival horror game I've played in a very long time. So I really strongly recommend people check it out. Even if you listen to the story, like, experiencing it is a whole other thing. So it's a good play. Even if you're not a huge survival horror person, I think this is one of the better ones to play. It plays better than most of the older games that it's referencing. And I think that it's worth the look.
This is a good play. The King in Yellow is not a good play. Don't watch it.
Yeah, don't act in it. If your local children's theater is doing The King in Yellow, don't go.
Listen, that yellow star in the sky that keeps getting bigger, you should really stop doing that play.
It's probably fine.
Yeah. Well, Gino, as a survival horror sicko and as someone who has played a lot of the modern indie attempts of making a Resident Evil, let's call it, I think this is the best one. I think this game manages to do more than just make a pretty good approximation or modernization of games from the late 90s. And I think it deserves recognition for that because it's doing its own thing. It's taking influence from Silent Hill, especially, unsurprisingly. But it's doing its own twist on it. And I really like it. It's got some really good mood.
Yeah. I mean, you can see all of its inspirations very transparently, but it manages to just take those expectations that you can build up just by seeing the references and play with them enough to surprise you. And I think that a lot of games just go, hey, remember that from this other game. When I first saw the Euler and went, oh, it's a nurse from Silent Hill, I thought that it might just end there, and it does not. It goes significantly further. All right, with that, I think we can wrap up Signalis.
Wait, I promise.
Okay, last thoughts, final thoughts. Go.
I gotta tell
Yep.
people who the things are named after.
Oh, yes, tell me about Penrose Man.
Penrose Man. Sir Roger Penrose was a mathematical physicist, a philosopher of science, and a Nobel laureate in physics. He worked with Stephen Hawking on singularity theorems, and he also made the Penrose triangle, which is an impossible object, kind of like that, like MC Escher deal. That, well, if you play the game, you can see it in Nowhere. There are like locks that have Penrose triangles in various forms on them.
Oh, that's what those locks are.
Yeah. And they kind of like cycle through and do different versions. Sierpinski is also a guy. Sierpinski triangle is like, when you have a Triforce and then you make a Triforce within that Triforce, and then you make a Triforce within that Triforce, that's the Sierpinski triangle. And this is what the mining facility is named after. And then when we get the flash of the high school that they were in on Rotfront, that is the Mandelbrot Polytechnical School. Mandelbrot is another mathematical man. He made the Mandelbrot set, which is like fractals within fractals. So if you thought there was a time loop going on, you're probably right. Because all of these references lead to, like, what if loops were happening. So I promised, I said I would explain those, and we got it. Yay.
Yeah. All right, which means it is now my turn to pick the next game that we play. This will be our 199th episode that I'm picking for. And, we don't cover shooters enough. And Braden, I asked you, what's a good shooter that we should check out?
Fortnite again.
I gave you.
What is a good shooter?
I gave you multiple options.
You gave me multiple options. You were like Doom 2016. That's a really good game, or like the newer Doom that came out more recently than that. And those are really good. And you just said there's no way that I should pick like a Call of Duty, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. We probably would do a great job with like a Call of Duty game. So I think I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to pick a Doom.
Yeah.
And the Doom that I'm picking is Chex Quest.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah!
Okay.
I saw that one coming, and I love it.
Chex Quest is a perfectly solid Doom wad. It's free on Steam.
Yes.
Price is right.
You could do a lot worse.
Can we?
You could do a lot worse, he raves.
No, hey man, it's literally just Doom, but you're using the power of cereal to defeat mucus.
Yay.
Excellent. So next up, we're going to play Chex Quest, y'all.
We could play any of those Dooms. Not too late.
You could play Dusk.
Nope.
Name me one better cereal-based video game. You can't do it.
Can't do it. We're going to defeat the Phlegms. All right. Well, thank you for sticking with us through the Signalis episode. Hope you enjoyed our discussion of the game. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah. This is an exciting one to play. Just as exciting to talk about.
Thank you, M.
Thank you for letting me ramble about this game. If you want to hear more rambling about it, follow me on the internet. Not on dying.
Not on x.com.
Not on dyingx.com. Tumblr. I posted all my thoughts on Tumblr.
What is your Tumblr, in case people actually want to take you up on that?
The same as all my other ones. GameMaker M, the letter M. GameMaker M at Tumblr. Don't follow me if you know me in real life.
Everybody check out my LinkedIn profile where I post.
And any potential employers, if you're listening to this, ignore any cusses I made. I would love to work at your company.
I'm not a devout anti-capitalist at all. I promise.
Please like and follow me on Twitch.
We didn't even talk about all the communism.
Where I will play games that are worse than Countdown. I will play games that are worse than Signalis. At some point, I'm going to get back into horror game streams.
That's ArbitraryWater on Twitch.
ArbitraryWater on Twitch.
Thank you, Braden. ArbitraryWater Redacted.
What if you just played Doom? Like the original.
Nope, we're playing Chex Quest.
But you're already 80% of the way there.
But instead, we're playing Chex Quest.
The physics are the same because it's literally the Doom engine.
Next time, Chex Quest. Thank you, listeners. Till next time, peace.
I like the cinnamon sugar Chex.
Those are the best ones. It's not especially close either, I don't think.
How do you feel about Apple Chex?
I like Muddy Buddies.
Oh, go to hell.
Not an official Chex product, but
they are now.